This episode of WoW Weekly is brought to you by WoWweekly.net, your source for Warcraft and Blizzard news, guides, and editorials. This week in Warcraft, patch 5.4.7 has hit the PTR, including the probable mount and pet rewards for the Warlords of Draenor Collector's Edition. Some client strings were data mined, including the words Veteran Bonus, and we've got a new character model preview, and this time it's the female human models. I'm Mezzy, and welcome to WoW Weekly. This week, I'm joined by someone who's been out of the running quite a while. Mario, how are you?
Yeah, it's all good. So far, so good. I'm happy to be back, and sorry I've been away for so long.
Yeah, no pay for you. As usual, I'm joined by LJ. How are you, LJ?
I'm all right.
All right,
And
good to hear.
yourself? The
Yeah,
Mars
not too
has that-
shabby. Had the day off, so that was good. Working on the website and stuff like that.
Always
Um,
nice.
Yeah. And finally, you know him as the Wookiee, Matt. How are you, Matt?
So you call me Wookie, but you don't continue to call LJ Babyface.
Oh.
Oh,
Well,
Okay,
he's not a
Why
babyface
babyface?
anymore.
I have a beard again.
Exactly. So
Oh.
I can't call him babyface. So yeah.
apart from
Right.
that, I'm fine.
Well, that's good to hear then, Mr. Wookie. Okay, so patch 5.4.7 has hit the PTRs late last night, and it looks like it's going to be the patch that will be that will contain the rewards for if you buy the Warlords of Draenor digital versions, either the normal version or collector's edition. And let's just get started with it right away, because one of the interesting things that popped up were two client strings. Now, almost every patch, you always get these client strings added as well for stuff like the new shop, for new error messages and stuff like that. But now, this time, two things were added. Well, lots more, but these were interesting. The first one was character upgrade no veteran bonus, dash just no veteran bonus. And the second one was character upgrade profession boost, which had the description veteran bonus level 60 plus characters will also receive a skill boost to their primary professions. Now, this could mean a few things, and if you've already read the article on wowweekly.net, our new website, then you'll already be aware with our speculation about this part. First of all, it could mean that all level boosted characters get their primary professions boosted up to the current content. It could also mean that all characters who reach level 60 or higher get their primary professions boosted. Or there's a third option, which is something what seems pretty likely, is that we could be seeing a veteran bonus, as the one of the strings indicates, for players who have been playing WoW for a long time, and just give them the bonus that it's easier to level professions on alt characters. But of course, it could also mean, and this is also a real possibility, that the veteran bonus could be for everyone who at least has an X amount of level 90 characters, to again make leveling professions on alts easier. Now, the X could of course just be one character. So, over to you guys, because we haven't discussed it, only put it on the website. What do you think it will most likely be, or what would you like it to be? And is it fair to give players a bonus who have been playing WoW for, I don't know, 5 years maybe? Longer, shorter, at least an X amount of time? And you could compare it to rewards, like when you've stopped playing WoW for a while and they ask you to come back, and they give you a free amount of game time. I'm not sure whether it's a month or less. but that's a similar reward type thing that other players don't have access to. Let's start with LJ this week. What do you think?
You can
Yeah,
start with Mario. He hasn't been here for a while.
I know, but we're punishing him.
This is my punishment, exactly.
All right, so LJ, what do you think?
Um, yeah, like I think this is also good for like an extension for what we talked, I think, last week or a week before about with the instant level 90. I think it's a nice thing to include that not only new players but also old players being veteran players might get a bonus. As of now, it's all unclear yet because all we have is that line, right? So that's the only thing we know. So
Yeah, exactly. It's
the
all
idea is
pure
there,
data
but
mining.
it's just an idea at the moment. We don't know what it will do or what it will contain, so that's still a bit hazy. But I really like the idea that they are at least thinking of us, but like that we're somewhere in Blizzard's heart. Well,
Yeah,
black
yeah,
hole
maybe.
more than heart, but still, it's good that they think about it and that they're whatever it's going to be. Of course, I want it to be like something like something for professions or something that would be very nice because they're always more difficult to level up in a new expansion. But yeah, it's just I think it's a good idea and that they should really work it out and make it something useful, and make
Would
something good.
Would you rather it be something for everyone who at least has one or two level 90 characters, or for veteran players, as a veteran bonus indicates, who have been playing WoW, for example, for 3 years?
Well, I think well for me either of them works, but I think it's better for people who have actually played for a longer time. That also gives, depending on what it is, an incentive for other players that join now or are on that 2 year mark or 1.5 year mark, whatever, to keep on going. For instance, and also like if they for if it concerns alts or profession leveling or I don't know, could be an array of things. But I would go more for the time they spend, the time their account has been, well, that they have an account.
Yeah, active amount of game time.
Yeah, exactly. Because like I've had pauses as well in the game that I've momentarily just not paid subscription, not deactivated, but just not paid subscription and had an active account. But if like you can see that mine was made in 2005, I believe, something like that, 2004, 2005. So yeah, if you go judge by that, then just see how old the account is.
Yeah. Um, Now let's ask Mario then. What are your thoughts on this, Mario?
Um, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of rewards just for the sake of coming back to the game. I think that a true hardcore raider or a veteran might. I mean, I, for instance, I'd rather come back to the game if I felt that the content actually gets my attention as if as a content that we had before. Um, like giving a reward to come back to the game kind of for me takes away the pride in itself or the hardcore of a sense of the game. It's like, yeah, if you come back, we give you this present, we give you this recognition that you came back to the game,
Yes.
instead of this is the content which is like the content that we used to have back when you really felt like raiding. That's me will be much more appealing than a reward,
Yes,
per
but
se.
just to interrupt you there, they already do that occasionally to try and get players back with game time. What we're talking about is for players who have been playing for a very long time and are still active.
Yeah, again, the same thing works. I mean, if I'm still playing, is because yeah, I'm happy with the game. A recognition for being a veteran, for being around for so long. It's always nice, but my fear is that people take that to the next level. I think that that actually, I think I might have heard even people in chat saying, "Well, the new players, or the casual players, or the players who started to play the game recently, they got a lot of rewards just by coming and play nowadays. So it's about time that we get." It does create some sort of like misconception of what the reward can be. So
Hmm.
I'm not too sure about that, to be honest.
All right. Matt, what do you make of these client strings?
Um, I'm not sure. Say if it is something, as I think as we've sort of said, that just helps. It's just a small bonus for people that play the game for a long period of time, mainly when they got the account a while ago. Depends what it is. It won't be too bad. I think if it's something just silly as you said, like leveling professional alts or stuff like that, that would make a lot more sense. I don't want it to be too important because I think it just risks of becoming a bit of a joke. But we'll see what happens. It's interesting.
What I just want to add to that is it's you got to realize that we've been playing the game for a while now, and that I mean we like the game and we've stayed through the game for, so that's not the problem. But the thing is, it works. It has two benefits, of course. That not only do they appease players that have been there for a long time, but they also give players incentive to stay longer. So that's been the main problem with World of Warcraft at the moment, that they attract a lot of new players, but they can't keep them. And I think Blizzard is trying to work on a way to actually keep those players in the game and keep them, because subscription is of course their main income, not just they buy the game once and after 1 or 2 months they stop. So I think that is also something to keep in mind.
That's a very good point because we've talked about that in the past as well. How players just come for the new patch, play for a couple of weeks, maybe even 2 months, and then they unsubscribe again until the next patch. And they don't really have any incentive to stay because players burn through content pretty quickly, and that's of course because of other reasons as well. But believe that was in our ranty episode actually. But yeah, they have no incentive. So if they can create such an incentive and reward long-time veteran players with that, even if it's just for alts, I think that would be a great gesture. If they can give people free stuff for coming back to the game, why not those who have been here the whole time? Why don't they get an extra bonus for being so loyal to the franchise the entire time?
Yeah, you know what I mean. I think if they did do something to say, "Oh, come back to the game, this is what you get," that I agree. They have to do something for everybody. So um, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I guess that covers the client strings already, so let's move on. Now, the next part, I always write stuff out before the podcast. It's going to be a bit of a long one, so hang in there with me while I get through all the information. Because we're going to be talking about PvP, and seeing as we barely ever talk about PvP, some background information is required. So, we've had many times over the course of the game that PvP gear was actually better for PvEers when you didn't have access or time for the top-notch PvE gear. And because for the more laid-back player, really, the item level of those PvP items were higher than, for example, the dungeon sets and the easier raid rewards. I believe in the Burning Crusade, Season 2 items were already better or on par with Karazhan gear. So I myself as well started to Arena to get better gear for raiding what was then Gru's Lair, McTheridan, etc. So Blizzard agreed eventually that this was a problem, and so in Mists of Pandaria they changed it so that the item levels of the current PvP items were much lower than the current raid tier. But they added on extra PvP stats which didn't count towards the item budget to compensate for it in PvP, making the PvP gear better than PvE gear in PvP arena, raid battlegrounds, stuff like that. Now, with the extra PvP season coming in, the item level for that PvP set, the Prideful set, has been updated on the PTR from 540 to 550, putting it 2 item levels higher than the fully upgraded Flex Raid tier loot, which is, of course, after upgrading it from 540 to 548. This gives Prideful items 2 item levels more budget for PvE stats than Flex items. And this sparked a discussion quite quickly. I believe it was on Friday night that the PTR stuff was data mined, and it created a discussion quite quickly. And a community manager Moore said the following about it. It's important to remember that flex gear can be upgraded to item level 48, sorry, my bad. And has extra advantages through things like sockets and set bonuses. We don't feel that the extra 2 item levels on prideful pieces are going to make them more desirable for flex raiders. So, with all this being said, the background of how PvP gear has affected the game in the past and how it's been treated in Mists of Pandaria, do you guys think that the more casual player will now once again feel forced to do PvP instead of flex raiding to get the best gear that they can? Or will they just not care about it? And more importantly, as most of the Mists of Pandaria game design has been, to prevent this exact problem, is it worth creating it now for the last part of Mists of Pandaria? Let's have Mario start on this one then.
Well, it is quite a topic indeed. I think
Yeah.
that to really assess and look at this problem of trying to resolve it, it's not really possible. I think that there's been years and years that unfortunately Blizzard has had taken the wrong turn, and ever since they tried to patch a problem and they just create a bigger problem when trying to make things right. Initially, one of the biggest downfalls of this system in itself is the gear score, period. Gear score basically destroyed the whole idea of how people should go about the progress of either PvP or PvE, especially in PvE, because people say, yeah, okay, so if you want to run an instance, a dungeon, or a raid, people just started to base everything on the gear score, and then everything just went downhill from there. And the fact that actually the PvP side got also infected by this, or because people saw there was a way to benefit from PvP and PvP alike because of the gear score, because of the gear, and it was like there's no way Blizzard can control it now. And to go back and re-educate people on that front, it's just going to be almost impossible. And I mean, I just don't. I just seriously struggle to see a positive end, a positive, light at the end of the tunnel on that front. I think I seriously don't know what to say. I just don't have anything good to say, about that. It's just that if there's any way that Blizzard can figure out a way to remove gear score from the game, that's probably the first thing I would recommend, and probably the beacon of a possible hope to address this issue. But I seriously don't know how that can be addressed. I seriously don't.
Do you not feel that the system in Mists of Pandaria overall has been much better? At least to keep PvP and PvE content separate as far as
Well,
gear goes?
well, in a way, it kind of it has not. Okay, to answer your question, it has not worsened, but it's not good because again, it kept the system that has come from the previous expansion. So I think that maybe, and I so hope for it, that with the new expansion, when an expansion comes, we have that gap, we have a chance to make things right. Because obviously, in if we are still in the expansion, it's much more difficult to to address very very important issues, and this is one of them. Maybe with warlords things will change, and I hope they do. Are things good or are things bad nowadays? I mean, they are constant, and people, I think, they have found their their peace, in both respects of gear, content, gear, EPVE and PvP raids and everything. But it's not an ideal situation, and I hope it changes.
Well, for competitive PvP, next expansion we will have Trial of the Gladiator, which I believe is going to be basically like an arena realm that they have now on occasion, where you already get all the gear and it's based on pure skill. Um, would that solve it for the PvP side of things?
Again, I think that in theory it could, but that we have been there. We have been in situations where it looked good on paper, but when we get to live that experience, when we get to live that expansion or the new, the whatever it is that Blizzard has come up with, the new something, it doesn't work quite well, or it takes a very interesting turn in saying, oh yeah, I didn't expect that to happen. So. But still, I wish to think positive for everything that we are about to see. But again, the more I think about it, the more frightened I get.
All right. LJ, what are your thoughts on this? On the
I basically agree for a whole big deal with Mario, which is a horrible thing to say on itself. But yeah, no, I totally agree, especially with the whole item level, gear level subject,
yeah.
which of course is a part of it. I think that is one of the main things that is wrecking, destroying the game at the moment. Just everybody is so focused on the item level and not on player skills or whatever. That I mean, like people are choosing an item which is lesser for their class just because the gear level is higher because other people look more to that. I think it's horrible. It destroys the fundamental game that World of Warcraft is, that you make your own character and you play with it and you change it out like it was, just like to drag that in as well, the talent system. The talent system is very awesome nowadays. You cannot customize your character that much anymore as you used to be able to. But that's a different story. But it's just me basically saying that the way it's going now, it's pretty horrible, and I think it really needs to be changed. Otherwise, it's going to go really badly, and especially with the PvP gear. I was there actively raiding while people were raiding in PvP gear, which just didn't seem correct because you spent so much hours in the raid to get your gear and do so much focus. And some people just they solo. I mean, like rogues or whatever classes that are better at PvP than a holy paladin, for instance, like me, that just do that a couple hours a week and then get just as much gear as I do while concentrating on boss fights with actual tactics and such. Uh, I must say that I always have had a very fond hatred against PvP. I hate it always. Even sometimes I can do it for a little while in a group, but after a while, I just really hate the fundamentals of PvP. But everybody likes their own piece of World of Warcraft. I'm more a PvEer. But that, besides, I just don't think it. It's like Mario said, they implement a lot of things. It's like they implement one A, and then they have to implement B to fix A, and then they have to implement C to fix B, and so on and so on. It's like a pile of cards, and eventually that's gonna. If somebody takes down one card, it's going to drop on itself, and that's what World of Warcraft and Blizzard have been doing and are doing with World of Warcraft for a long time now, and I think they really need to sort things out. Otherwise, it is going to come down on itself, and then they're going to question themselves what happened. While if they would have listened to the community, that shit would have gone differently.
Well, the thing is, excuse me, the system so far has worked up until this extra incoming PvP season. PvP players only had to worry about getting PvP gear, and PvE players only for PvE gear. Now with this change, with the extra system to hold at least PvPers out until the next expansion, you get the mess again that we had in Burning Crusade, maybe in Wrath, must have been, and maybe Cataclysm too. Um, Maybe not then anymore, but up until this point, nothing has been. It hasn't been a problem. That was completely solved. Now with have not knowing when Warlands is going to come out, and the additional PvP season, uh, this mess comes back. Surely Blizzard knows that next expansion, they don't want to start off like that. They want to continue using the system they were.
Yeah, of course, but that keeps things simple. Bah, English is difficult. Keeps things simple if they can continue on the same track that they have been. But it
Hmm.
doesn't mean that it's the right track. And like you said, it's been going well so far, but it hasn't been going great like it used to go. not before they introduced item level and shits like that.
Okay.
I
And
think.
yeah,
Can I
Go ahead.
ask you both a question?
yeah,
In both of you played the Burning Crusade.
yeah.
What
Active.
what were your thoughts when raiding, when PvPing, when looking to progress your character? What were you looking at? Now people look at item level. What were you looking at then?
Well, I remember, okay, I back then when I started playing, that's when I really started to grasp the idea of raiding. And I remember going to McTheridan, right? And at the time, I was not a very experienced raider. But one thing that I liked and what really drove me to join and to raid, etc., was the fact that I knew people. I knew that people knew the tactics for one specific boss. Now, not necessarily that person who knew the tactics would have the best gear. In fact, sometimes I remember this because I used to inspect other players as well. Sometimes healers would have a much better gear than the tank, who by coincidence was the raid leader. But what I liked was the fact that this guy who was giving the tactics knew exactly what had to be done. And because he knew, he told everyone else what they should be positioning, what they should do, when they had to heal this, when they had to DPS that. And that made me feel assured, and that gave me the fun experience that I still remember and enjoy nowadays. And that goes to prove that gear means nothing for the game, or actually to a point. But for me, and I think that many players in the community agree that they somehow Blizzard made the mistake to make such a big fuss of gear in itself that people lost complete track of what was important in the game, which was the cooperation, the coordination, the knowing what to do, knowing when to do, like really get to know your class despite of the gear. People nowadays just make up for everything because of the gear. Oh, because the tank has more stamina, he can get more hits, so therefore the healer can slack a little bit more. No, back in the day, if you did not know your class inside out, and if you did not do everything you needed to do for your class to be at its prime level, then that's it. It was easily noticeable, and people and guilds would fail because that person or that class or those particular people in the raid did not do their part to make up for the composition of the raid. And this is one thing that, I mean, come on, I have to be fair, and maybe I have been bashing Blizzard for so long and on many fronts, and it's not easy to create a game as successful. And many other companies, they have failed horribly, and Blizzard's still going. So something right they are doing, yes. But something like Gear Score, it's one flaw that I cannot take, and I cannot forgive Blizzard for, because it's something very simple, very. It's not well. Maybe it's not simple, but it's something that can easily, maybe not easily nowadays, because it's been we've had two expansions on it so far, but that it's something that created so much problem that why they're not addressing it yet, I still don't know. And I think they should. And if they did that, I think that the community will have will enjoy will go back and enjoy the game as we used to once.
Can I
Okay,
come in and do devil's advocate?
in a minute, yes. But that's all great and stuff like that, Mario, but that doesn't really answer the question I asked. Out of that whole story, can I gather that when you logged in and you were looking at your character, how can I progress my character? Was it I need to learn the tactics to boss, and then you would feel progressed?
I think
Well,
I think he answered it by saying that okay, back in Burning Crusade, I was in the same situation as Mario. That I was also a bit of a noob. I started with Karazhan and progressed with that. And I didn't get that far, but I still learned the basic concepts of raiding and such. But I think by saying that, especially like people used to look up at the gear, not the gear level. Like you used to look up at the player. You used to look up at like you had certain people that were known on your servers. Okay, there's certain things that they have implemented are great for the game, but they also backfired in the way that they made the greatness of the game lesser. And maybe we weren't. That's also the thing. I think you cannot ask the way the question you just asked, Mezzy, is I think it's not that applicable to how we played back then, because now you have a focused item level, but back then you were focusing on progression as a whole, not
and
just getting
skill.
not
Looking up to
and
stuff.
skill and
And skill,
everything,
yeah.
and not just focusing on item level and getting that new piece because it has 5 more item levels than the previous one. No, you were going there because for instance a Mactherodon or a Prince Malchazar or a Lady Vash or something, because you wanted to do it. You were going there because you had a group of friends, you wanted to go there and you wanted to have fun and you wanted to progress and you wanted to feel better with that group. You didn't do it because you wanted more gear. Some people may have done it, and eventually you do need the gear, but you needed to start off with people that you trusted and that you wanted to
Exactly.
go with. And
Yeah.
nowadays, it's we have looking for raid, we have flex, we have normal, we have heroic, we have mystic next time. We have 5 different levels of item levels, and that's what's changing the game, because now we have people on every different level trying to get gear just to progress to the next one, and that's what's wrong. We don't go from Karazhan to Mactherodon to the next boss to the next boss. No, we go from looking for raid to flex to normal to heroic to mystic, and just for
Exactly.
the item level and for the gear, and not because we want to raid with people who know and we like, and like Mario said, the tank with shitty gear, but who is an excellent and intelligent person who can guide 25 people to the kill, and not because he has 5,000 because he has
The max
5,000 more
gear
health
level.
than the other
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Can I say? Can
Exactly.
I come in and be devil's advocate on this?
Yes, go for
Back,
it, Matt.
you mentioned about gear score. Gear score is one of the items which, in some spells, simplifies everything. Back in the day, yes, you had the fights, but there was less to do. There was only one set of raid to do. People knew the best items were the tier items. People still knew the best items what you were going, and there was tier 1, tier 1.5, tier 2. There were all the tiers. People knew what the progression was. Just because there's now an item level on that still doesn't mean there is still the progression there on the items that we all know. The main difference to what there is now is they are, how to put it. People have moaned for God knows how long there wasn't enough to do. Now they're putting more in and pissing around with item levels. It's the thing we've got to sort of accept, that there is going to be um, stuff they have to do to get the item levels in and stuff like that. I just don't feel item levels are a big deal when it comes to the bigger picture. At the end of the day, as you're talking on, if you have a good raid leader and a good setup, then you should be able to down it anyway. It shouldn't matter what the gear item is. The unfortunate instant you get now is people do look at it too much. People do pay too much of attention to it, but I just don't think it's as big of an issue as it could be. I think it does clarify a lot of things. It helps newer people come in, realize what the progression is. LFR should be scrapped because that. I, I haven't got an issue with the item level. I've got an issue with like people going to LFR and don't have a clue what they're doing, and then they expect to get the higher item levels with the same amount of skill what they have to do in LFR. So you'll go into LFR 5 to 8 item level. Yeah, I've got some decent gear. Oh, I want 540. Let's go to flex. Oh shit, I died. Oh no, I died again because they don't learn the tactics. Um,
Can I interrupt for one moment?
yeah.
I just want to say, like, if you have the comparison with item level back then and now, I mean, I started with a fairly noobish guild and I had to work my way up. Everybody needs to do that, but it's different now also with recruitment. Like, for instance, you guys are in a more progressive orientated guild than I am. We don't care much about item levels, and somebody needs to start there, of course, but it's through not through item level, but through playing the game, you get skill and you get also more item levels and also better gear. But I think that that has become worse now because you need everybody. You expect certain people to get. Of course, like you guys, it's normal that you guys expect a certain gear level. Every high guild wants that, but that also means that people with lesser gear, who might be better than people with better gear because they got lucky to get the gear or such, before, for instance, on an armory or something, that you see them that have higher gear, that they get a better, they get accepted better, only to be kicked out later because they're shitty. While somebody who has shittier gear, who doesn't get the chance to prove himself. I mean, you get that, you have that always, but I think that is more applicable now because you have so many sets of gear and everybody's expected to get everything. While I would have never probably gotten a choice or gotten a chance in like the guild we all met in, Bridge Burners,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
I think if item level would have been such a heavy point back then, I think a lot of people wouldn't have gone into that guild. Of course, you need to have some sort of skill and you need to prove yourself. But I came from a fairly noobish guild, and I was lucky they needed the Holy Paladin back then, and I had okay-ish gear. But if you would have had all the items levels to compare, and I mean, they might have found somebody else who had a bit higher item level, but not to sound cocky, but would have been shittier than me.
Yeah.
And just to comment something that Matt said, I disagree on the fact that before we had less content to do. Actually, even the getting to know your character was a content in itself. Not to mention that you had the endless quests and you have the class quests as well. Then you had the quest that you had to get your mount, you had to do this, you had to do that. But most importantly, what unfortunately Gear Score, maybe Gear Score before it came, it may be something that on paper it looked awesome. Okay, it gave Blizzard a way to measure things in a much better way, to maybe even create. Maybe that was even what made possible to do the system that you can adjust the attributes of your gear. The
Reforging.
Reforging. Maybe that was what sparked the idea of reforging. I don't know. Maybe that was the main idea. So, but is at some point they thought that it was good. Okay, yeah. So it was created, that's it. But what I feel nowadays, because everything is just evolving around the gear score, people they don't care about even more. They really don't care about knowing the tactics of the boss. They go along the way. Some people still don't know exactly what the tactics are of one particular boss, but because they have that amount of gear, that level of gear, they automatically get invited to a raid because they meet that minimum requirement. I remember a time that even for an application for us to accept a player in a guild, we had to know, and he had to prove by linking sometimes even the achievement, or we would go to the armory to know that he has done this, and that. We didn't even look. Obviously, ultimately, yeah, we would look at the gear, maybe because of that we would know that he was, I don't know, maybe enchanting it correctly or what have you, or maybe the professions, but ultimately we were interested in the experience that the player had. Okay, and everything else was secondary. Even the professions, if it was max leveling in this profession. So I think that to answer Matt's question, I got carried away. So before we were enjoying more the game because it was all about the experience, the character, what we had to do in order to clear content, to get invited to guilds, to get some raiding going, to experience the content, and to become raiders or hardcore raiders or what have you. It was not because of what you were. The gear that you had was because you could prove that even though you could do, or you had less gear, you would still pull more DPS, or you would do more healing, or you would know exactly when to heal, or you are a good tank. That's what matters. Before we were in a game, while in the past where a game was a game that even though it would allow you to be better with less gear. Nowadays, you cannot be a good player if you don't have the gear. Unfortunately, that's it. Or at least that's how people view you. The other day, I was trying to get on a flex rate. The amount of the minimum requirement, I think, was 540 for a flex rate. And so initially I was invited because they went to Warlocks. In Warlocks nowadays, they do pull one of the best DPS as a destruction spec. So, but because my gear level was something like 532, I was immediately kicked. Immediately. I mean, there was no argument. There was no argument about it. And then on another raid, there was one hunter or one, I can't remember class, that he was 10 times better than me. He was better geared than me, and I still will pull. There wasn't much of a difference between his DPS and my DPS, and I had significant less gear than he did. And it's not because I'm the best warlock in the game. No. Probably there's also the fact that warlocks and destruction are pretty well. They do pretty nice DPS nowadays, but it's because the gear was not speaking for itself. Gear is not, ultimately what really matters, but that's what Blizzard has been doing. And even the challenge modes nowadays, the different difficulty levels for the raid nowadays, it's all based around, it's conceptualized on the gear. And that's what I think is just wrong. And they keep repeating the same error as we go forward. And I hope they change that. That's the only thing I hope they do.
Yeah, I of course agree with most of what has been said. But if we agreed all straight away, then there wouldn't be much to talk about, and there wouldn't be much of a podcast. So
You can't just leave well enough alone, can you?
no, exactly. So one of the things, though, to get back on something what LJ said as well about us as a semi-hardcore raiding guild, especially now with recruitment, that we are looking for more geared players. Well, that's because of simply if you don't have the gear, as a tank, for example, you're useless on fights like Thok Heroic. And now what are some other hard-hitting fights?
Siegecrafter.
Siegecrafter, indeed. So the system makes it so
Malcolm.
that we have to get those tanks, because just look at the 4 difficulties, and each has to be harder than the
Yeah, but
next,
that's
obviously.
what we're saying exactly. That
Yeah.
the system is flawed.
Exactly, the system promotes looking at the item level because you simply need it. Now, one thing I find extremely funny about what Mario said about going to the flex raid and the requirement is 540. But 540 is the item level gear that you get from flex. So that attitude from players as well to ask too much for their pug runs basically is insane. And the players need to adjust on, especially the more puggable type of things as well. It's not just the game design there; it's also in the players not wanting to wipe, not wanting to execute the fights properly. And I believe I've already said once, I'd really like to go back to a Burning Crusade type system where you, as a new player, have to go through all raid tiers to learn the raiding mechanics, the how to do things, move out of fire, kiting, all that kind of stuff. Because in the Burning Crusade, you started at the bottom and you learned from the bottom up. You started on fairly easy content, Karazhan. Went to Gruul's Lair was a bit tougher. Mechtheridon.
By the way, sorry, did you actually do Karazhan?
Yes, I did.
It was a bitch when it first came out. Please do not say it was
Well,
easy.
yes, of course. But if you do it for what? How many?
I've still
at least
got
a year. If you do it for at least a
nightmares,
year, and you continue doing it, then it of course does become easy. But mechanics-wise, and now I remember what my next tutorial was going to be. I need to write that down soon. There are too many mechanics for players to learn raiding in a decent state. Now it's each boss has 5, 6 different things you all need to remember, sometimes 2 at the same time, 3 at the same time. Fallen Protectors, for example. While in the Burning Crusade, fights were still fairly simple. They weren't complex, whereas they are now. And I feel that has also kind of reached a limit, but I feel like I'm going slightly off topic now.
Oh, we've been off topic for the past half hour, I think.
Yeah, the original topic was PvP gear, so gear-related PvE. You can see the path that we went.
Yep. Somewhere.
It's
Going to
all
your main-
related.
Going to your main topic, the only this is part of an issue that we have. Like one last thing on the whole gear score thing. I think the issue that people have nowadays, 9 times, it's the gear score does enable people to be arses, but unfortunately, that's the main issue people have. It's the fact that, asking for 540 item level for flex is a joke. It gives 540 item level, so why would you invite people that don't need any item level 9 times out of 10 from flex if they have that already? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
But with regards to, because I think is it the one? Because I unfortunately had to go away for a few seconds earlier.
Yes, so
Is
PvP
it the
gear is going to be 550
yeah?
next
And
season.
again, it's the flaw with what they have done in regards to announcing a nice extra season of PvP and nothing for the PvE. If they then turned around and said something PvE-ish, I don't think anyone would really care. But again, giving us few, it's almost like we're going to give PvPers extra gear. By the way, here's some model pictures. Enjoy. And that's how
Well,
it feels at the moment. It just feels that they're just going to give the PvPers something to do for 6 months, because at the end of the day, it looks like we're going to have Ogrimer
for quite
for
a
six
while.
months, which, oh joy, yay, woohoo! Um, if they, and the thing is, they've already said they don't want to take people off the expansion to give us a crappy one boss, three, don't mean 2, 3 dungeon 5. There's no point. Yes, you probably got to be looking. It's probably going to be 5 months, 6 months, probably 5 months for the patch before the expansion, so we can have a few more bits and bobs to do. But until then, we are not going to have much to do, and it's going to be very, very interesting about
Very politically correct word.
yes,
Interesting.
interesting
Yeah.
on what PvEers are going to do for so long. But at the end of the day, they've all, PvPers, yeah, you've got an extra expansion. Oh, you're going to get better gear from it. And I do agree. That is the downside at the moment, because they've got the issue where they're giving the PvPers more stuff to do, better gear.
They can
And
progress their characters some more.
yeah, they can progress their characters, where basically the PvE, yes, okay, in the grand scheme of things, we probably have slightly more to do on the PvE side. We've been doing that for the last expansion. This is new stuff for them, and I think that's where the bigger issue is going to be, is the fact that we have nothing new. We just have the same old, same old.
Well, yeah. Um, One more thing related to this news item. I was thinking about that. 2 extra item levels. Some players are going to be like, okay, I'm going to do arena, but to play devil's advocate, if they really want those 2 extra item levels per slot, they should just go play arena or rated battlegrounds. It means that they will see a different part of the game, increasing the lifespan of the game for those players. And as it actually is true, there is stuff for people to do. Play the PvP stuff. It's the player's choice to not play the arena season or rated battleground season. Heck, if your guild, let's say your flex guild, is done with flex, have 548 average item level, all upgraded, etc., and they want those 2 extra item levels, okay, form a rated battleground team with your guild. Go do that, earn those 2 extra item levels. If you win 40 rated battlegrounds, you'll get an extra amount to boot. So, on the other side, it does create content for all those players, just not in the PvE sector.
Which is the downside, because if you look at the amount of people, PvP and PvE, yes, there'll be a few, but I don't mind PvP. I don't mind doing it. It's a laugh. It's all right every now and then. If you want to do rated battlegrounds, you then need to find a group of people for yourself that will actually come and help, which will do it. And that becomes an issue itself. You're sort of sitting there going, oh, I now need to try and find people that...
Yeah, yes and no. For the pug flexers, yes, because they were pugging flex anyway. They could do arena instead, for example. But for guilds who are based on flex rating, they already have a team. If they all want to get those 2 extra item levels, then go do it as a guild. Go play rated battlegrounds.
Meh.
So, yes, the pugger is screwed in this situation. But even then, they could find a 2v2 or a 3v3 arena team. So yeah, it does create content for them in a certain way, even if it's not PvE content. And then it's up to them to say either I'm going to unsubscribe for a while because I'm done with the game until Warlords and play other games that offer me PvE type content, or
Which I do.
exactly, which I think most of us do, except for the unsubscribing part. It's just not playing outside of raiding, and for the rest, it's yeah, I'll play PvP content. I'll try it out. Maybe they'll find out they like it, and they'll continue enjoying the game.
Sounds bliss the way you say it.
Well, it's devil's advocate, but saying it out loud, I kind of do agree with myself. Devil's
We
advocate's
don't.
way. Well, is it wrong what I'm saying?
No, it's not wrong.
It's not wrong what you're saying, but it is wrong what you're assuming.
It's wrong. It's not wrong what you're saying. It's flawed in the fact that yes, we technically do have we do have the issue. We could go and do PvP if you want, but a lot of PvEs don't PvP.
Yeah.
This is the issue. It's all right saying, oh, you could do this, you could do that, and you could do this. A lot of PvEs are PvEs for a reason. They don't PvP. If I want to be a PvP, I'll do it on a PvP realm. End of.
Yeah.
If I wanted to PvP all the time, I go on a PvP realm. I kill everything I could see. I'd be in a PvP guild. That all I do. The reason I'm in a PvE guild is to do PvE. And yes, every now and then I quite enjoy doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's a good laugh. So I know what you're saying. I know you're being devil's advocate on this, but it's just flawed. And the fact of the matter is there are a lot of PvEers out there, and I just don't agree with the fact that they've done this. If you know, I just don't agree. I don't like the fact that they've not given the PvEers anything. They've given the PvPers quite a bit.
Yeah, but that would cut into Warlord's development time, so...
I hate them.
In the end, if you're in this situation, either go up to normal mode rating, try that, then you'll earn item level higher than the prideful gear next season. Or if you are completely done with the game, you've done everything you wanted, no more achievements to get, or if you don't want to get achievements, that's fine too. Just unsubscribe for a while, play some other games that offer the type of content that you do want to play. When Warlords comes out, resub and see how things are then. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Any last thoughts?
Oh,
Well,
I
just
always
one
have
comment,
thoughts, but I don't
really.
know if you want to know them.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that it's just, I mean, what we discussed just now and the fact that we know that people, PvPers wouldn't do PvE, etc., or the other way around. It's just like a crude reality that we had to accept nowadays because of how the game is nowadays. But before, if people saw that the best way to experience the end game content was to do a little PvP, they would do that. Nowadays, there's no incentive for them. There's nothing because they know that they have found a much better way to do, to reach their end goal without doing, the extra hassle, or walking the extra mile. Mm-hmm. So that's what they do. Unfortunately, that's the reality.
Yeah. I think that's it. I forgot to say at the start of the episode, this was episode number 19, I believe already.
The torture.
And I didn't really introduce the site either, except for the quick thing at the start. So, we have a new website, wowweekly.net. I'll actually put it on the screen now. Should be on the screen. There we go. Here you'll find the day-to-day, or almost every day-to-day news on Warcraft, when new patch notes come out, when hot fixes are made, or character model previews, for example, like these. You can find them. You'll also find editorials on it. For example, mine, I'm going to use the Mezzy Talks as I've been using on forums. And of course, right now it's not connecting, which kind of sucks.
Better connection, man.
No, I'm using Chrome to show it. I know, it's terrible. Oops, Google Chrome could not connect to wowweekly.net. Isn't that great? Maybe.
Perfect kind of marketing that we need.
I know. I'll check it out after. Maybe the server's just down. So, there we go. Thanks for watching. I'm Mezzy. I was joined by Mario. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Alright, nice and short and sweet. LJ,
Sounds
thanks
kinky.
for joining.
You're welcome. See you next week again.
Yeah. And of course, Matt. Do I really need to say it? Thank you.
Well, what a pleasure it has been for
Of
you.
course.
Oh,
For me.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the pleasure's always here.
Of course. Alright. That's it then for this week. Keep up with us, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. Subscribe on YouTube. And we'll see you again next time.